Call the community safety meeting to order. Minutes of the meeting, motion to adopt the minutes of the meeting of the Community Safety Committee held on November 15th. Any additions or deletions or problems?
Adoption.
All in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, it's passed. Next committee meeting is January 17th, 2023 in the new year at 4 o'clock here in council chambers. Item number 1, Community Safety Division. Ms. Lloyd.
Nothing to add. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Move to receive the report.
Second? Oh, there you are. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Madam Chair, Ms. Lloyd, one question just for clarification. What is the status of the SPCA animal control officers that ticket people here in Richmond? What is their designation?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, that would be peace officer.
So they are they're not special constables.
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, no, they are not. The special constable status is only for their cruelty division.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 2, business license activity.
No, Michael.
Oh, there you are.
I can't hear you.
Sorry, we're having trouble hearing you.
Do it. Sorry, do it
Can
again.
staff
Michael,
turn them up a
please.
little bit?
He's muted.
I think it was from his end.
Michael, you're muted.
Yes, I was just saying that
Okay. We can only hear you through the someone's laptop over yonder, so.
I'll sit close.
Okay.
Okay. Oh. Okay.
All right. Item number 2, business license activity report. Mr. Corrado?
To the chair, I have nothing further to add, and I'm open to questions.
Okay. Councillor Day?
Madam Chair, you know, we heard about this society that is operating out of a house in Richmond that might even be a potential Chinese police station. Do societies have to register with the city of Richmond?
To the chair, through the chair to Councillor Day, nonprofits do not require a license.
And what if it, well, I guess all societies are nonprofits, aren't they, or maybe not?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, I'm not certain of that. I can take that into consideration and report back to council if necessary.
Okay, well, maybe we could find out more about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Heed?
Madam Chair, thank you. I have a question with respect to, and Councillor Day brought this up yesterday in council, and I've been thinking about it because it's something we were actually looking at in my previous employment. In the reviews of new liquor establishments, and we approved 2. And I know Councillor Day was talking about the fact that maybe we should review them after a year. Is there anything we can actually diary date or something for any of these new liquor establishments that are created? And what I want to do, Mr. Corrado, is try and, if there is a problem, stem that problem before it starts to fester, and you know we can deal with it versus having to take enforcement action against them.
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, there certainly is ability to diary date. There is the ability to review the number of calls for service from an RCMP standpoint, the number of complaints from the public. We also do, we don't announce when we do our primary and our liquor establishment inspections, but those are joint operations with the Liquor Cannabis Regional Branch along with the RCMP as well. There's a bit of a surprise factor involved in those. but we do monitor, and we can set a diary date for a year from now to review and report back to council.
I'm just wondering if that's something that we can at least, I don't want it enshrined, but somehow have something that it's reviewed after a year. You know, a long-established liquor, that's fine, but these are two, I believe, that are opening up to 2 a.m. And with the chief superintendent's limited resources here, it'd be nice to get to the problem before it festers. So I'm not sure if anyone else has some comments with respect to that, but it'd be nice to have something in place. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion on it?
Chair. Sorry, Madam Chair, I have one more question for Mr. Corrado. And this is in respect to the passenger transportation branch. And this is with illegal ride hauling enforcement, CS 18. We have many legal ride hauling services, including the two big ones, Uber and Lyft, operating here in Richmond. We seem to continually have these not legal rides, and you're taking enforcement on that, and I see your total fines issued. Was that total for the month, or was that total for the year of the $24,000? 31,000.
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, our total for the month for the city side was 7,650. Passenger transportation branch's total was 24,000. And then in total between the city and PTB is 31,000. And that's for year to date.
Year to date. So with respect to those that are operating here, what are our fines, the city of Richmond, identifying here? Are we operating without a business license? What are the type of enforcement that we're taking against them?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, yes, it would be operating without a business license. And PTB has several other types of fines that they can issue as well. So the combined total can be upwards of $2,000 or more.
Through the chair, is it a deterrent? Or are you finding the same characters involved?
Did you plug this in first?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, there is a number of different aspects that can be a deterrent, such as if the car can be impounded. But my understanding is it can be a lucrative business that drivers can earn into the tens of thousands of dollars. Staff have worked with staff from PTB to look at more, and council has advocated for more stringent measures, such as working with the Office of Superintendents for a driver's license to look at those driver's license being pulled for repeat offenders. That certainly would represent more of a deterrent.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Al?
To ask a question, and I don't know whether or not it's within your jurisdiction. I've received a lot of complaints about those meal delivery companies. I mean, they park everywhere, and then they just ride on the bikes ride on the sidewalk and things like that. So what kind of license do we give to this kind of operations? And what are the rules that they have to comply with?
Through the chair to Councillor Al, if the business is operating out of the city of Richmond, they would receive a business license. If they're providing delivery, but their headquarters is in another jurisdiction, then they would need a type of intermunicipal business license to operate. But typically, if they're operating out of Richmond, then they would need a business license for that Richmond location.
So can we find out how many of this kind of delivery services are actually located or registered in Richmond?
Through the chair to Councillor Al, yeah, absolutely, certainly we can report back.
Okay, good, thank you.
Anyone else? Move recommendation?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. It's passed. Property use and parking enforcement, Mr. Corrado, you're up again.
Through the chair, I have nothing further to add, and I'm open to questions.
Councillor Heed?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Wanted just to comment on CS 20, where you're talking about some of the more common calls for service. Unsightly premises, it seems to be significant with respect to that. We had a matter in front of, I believe it was council and committee not too long ago regarding a particular residence you had been working on for several years of an unsightly property. When I drive around Richmond, I see several of these unkept properties. Are they related to rentals, or in your experience in dealing with these, or are they owner premises?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, there are instances where they can be related to rentals. They can be related to owners that are not taking appropriate action. There seems to be a variety of different causal factors. There hasn't been any research to date to see how strong that correlation is. So at this point, I'd be hesitant to guess on that. But definitely there is a distribution of different ownership types and operators that we find associated with unsightlies.
And through the chair, is, again, compliance, is it usually voluntary compliance, or are we having to go to issuing fines?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, the lion's share of our investigations result in voluntary compliance. We then proceed on a spectrum of enforcement, which can include warning tickets, tickets. In the case of the unsightly bylaw, we have the order to comply at our disposal, in which case, barring an appeal to council, as we had recently, city staff would go in and clean the site, and the bill would be issued back to the property owner.
Madam Chair, just one more particular question, and at CS 23, and property use revenue by source, and where I'm going on this is, we had a discussion this week regarding the soil permits and fines and fees, and it related to a particular property out on River Road. And when I look at what you budgeted for in 2022, and I look at actual revenue that has come in, it's substantially lower. Can I make an assumption that there's more compliance in the soil permits, or is it just a matter of we've had less people that are going forward with this?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, the soil has been roughly in line in terms of revenue, in terms of the volume or tipping fees that we've associated with that. That reduced revenue number reflects the reduction in short-term rental revenue that was anticipated. And due to the pandemic, those numbers haven't quite caught up, but we are starting to see more activity in that area. And on that note, we have recently hired and staffed up one short-term rental bylaw officer 2. We have another short-term rental bylaw officer 2 who will be starting in January. And you can anticipate that both the tickets and fine revenue associated with that will tick up most likely in the December report.
So through the chair, so there's not necessarily more compliance, but what I'm trying to go, where I'm going is the deterrent model, is it enough deterrent that we're going to drive compliance as these requests come in?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, in most cases, the revenue that's derived from soil is when an applicant comes forward voluntarily. There are instances where through complaint or through proactive enforcement, our bylaw soil officer will come across illegal soil and dumping. At that point, we would potentially achieve compliance through warnings, through letters, through BVNs, or long-form prosecution action. So it is not necessarily indicative that there's more compliance as a result of more revenue. However, one could note that the increased economic activity associated with the increased volume fees is a sign that the soil bylaw is working as it was intended to. I understand there's a referral to report back from staff in 1 year to see how the implementation of the soil bylaw has gone. In addition to that, there is we will be posting a position for an additional soil bylaw officer as well. So once that position is posted, it has more activity and time to conduct their duties. We will report back to council on the progress of that position as well.
Thank you.
Councillor Day?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Well, I wanted to say thank you. We got a memo that the unsightly property on Southport seems to be dealt with and the derelict cars were removed. Does that now make that property compliant?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, in the eyes of staff, that is a compliant property now.
Good, good. And I was also pleased that, I think it was about a year and a half ago, I asked what's going on in the north end of River Road. There were so many parked cars there, most of which were damaged and uninsured and like an inch of dust on top of them. And I only see 1 or 2 there now. So maybe we could just remind our officers to just, you know, from time to time to go down to that sort of lonely end of River Road on the north end of Richmond and just make sure that it doesn't reappear. Because there's a lot of auto body shops in those warehouses. So, but so far, so good. Thank you.
Councillor Galanders?
Thank you to the chair. About the unsightly premises, I just have a question. It's mostly complaint driven, right?
Through the chair to Councillor Galanders, yes.
Yeah, because in my neighborhood alone, like after seeing them, what we consider an unsightly premise on our reports, there's several houses in my neighborhood that would definitely, if people complain, they would not be in compliance with our bylaws as far as the cars and whatnot. And they're all properties that are owned. They're not renters, but people that have been there for a long, long time, and their particular style of gardening or whatever is just absolutely out of this world with plastic things hanging from the trees and like just total like, you know, unique style, I guess. But, we all love our neighbors and there's no issues. And so nobody complains. And I feel like, yeah, I think it's important that it is just complaint driven because if your neighbors don't have an issue with it, then like I love the guy who has all the lawnmowers in his front lawn. Like, you know, if you need a lawnmower, you can go to this guy and I don't know. It's just, I have a real issue with the unsightly thing. I think we're kind of getting in the way of how people want to live. But anyway, it all depends on how we get along with each other. The other question is with the ALR soil issues as well. I'm glad to hear there's going to be another soil bylaw officer because it sounds like Mike Moran really has his hands full trying to catch all this stuff. He's always running around like a chicken with his head cut off, complaining, following up on complaints. My question is like, why isn't the ALC doing more about these things? You know, they made this big announcement a couple of years ago. They have this new legislation that'll punish illegal dumping operations up to $1 million. And it was like, yay, they've saved farmland. And we've got all these properties here. And I like that one on 6th Road, that's the repeat offender, that they're paying, we're fining them $500 a day or something because they paved over or gravelled over the entire property and they're just using it as a trucking operation. We're fining them every day, and they're happy to just pay the price because they paid ALR price for industrial land, so they can afford to get away with it. And the ALC is doing nothing? Why can't they come in and fine them $1 million?
Through the chair to Councillor Galanders, our staff does work very closely with the ALR, and they're in the loop as part of our enforcement. It is a symbiotic relationship, and staff can continue to work with them regarding potential resourcing, the timeliness of their action. But the relationship's been quite positive and helpful in terms of our joint action to date. And the ALC does have a large mandate, which is the entire province. But certainly we do enjoy, at least in Richmond, a good relationship with the ALC.
Well, sure, it sounds like it's a good relationship, but I don't know how effective it is if we can't stop people from using the land illegally. It's really offensive. I mean, my husband's, we paid $5 million for a 1 acre parcel of industrial land in Delta. And somebody just goes and pays $500,000 an acre for farmland in Richmond and knows they can just do whatever they want. And it's just not fair.
Through the chair to Councillor Galanders as well, perhaps we could convene in close to talk about next steps regarding to the property that you mentioned. But there are a number of different steps that both staff and the ALC can take, and that will be something we'll be looking at in the near future in regards to that property.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Recommendation? Do we have a motion on the recommendation? All in favor? Thank you. Richmond Fire Rescue, thank you, Mr. Grotto. Monthly activity report, Mr. Wishlove.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. I have nothing further to add to my report, but I'm happy to answer questions for you and your committee.
Councillor Galanders?
That's from before.
Oh, sorry. Oh, wait. Councillor Heed?
Through the chair, Chief, again, I raised this at the last committee meeting we had. I noticed on CS 28, the change from October 2021 to 2022 on medical calls. Significant. It's certainly going to put your average up a fair amount in 2022. Anything specific that you can use to correlate why it's jumping to that extent?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, thank you. We are approaching call volumes that we were experiencing pre-pandemic. And I expect that number to keep appearing to be increasing in the monthly reporting until we arrive at a time or a place where those numbers are going to be similar to what they were prior to COVID being present. During COVID, it was a risk management reaction by BC EHS to not dispatch fire rescue first responders to the majority of those calls, simply to keep the first responders, which are the fire rescue crews, in a secondary standby mode in case the paramedics became taken ill. And so we are slowly increasing our call volume back to the pre-pandemic levels now that the BC EHS has conducted that risk assessment, talked to the fire chiefs associations to say, yes, we are able to start re-attending those calls because the risk to our staff as a secondary core business is lessened. And so that's the reason why you're seeing those large increases. We do have the capacity to respond and attend to those calls.
To the chair, Chief, by practice, from my experience, the firefighters are usually the first ones at a medical call versus EHS. Again, I mentioned this last time, wait times for EHS and all that. Is that still your experience that the firefighters are the initial first responders to medical calls?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, that is in my data analysis that we arrive upwards of 80% before the BC ambulance folks do. And we attend and perform the vital interventions and assessments and then hand the patient over and support BC ambulance once they arrive.
And one last question from an interest point of view is, what's the level of medical training we give our firefighters at this point?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, our staff, the first responders in Richmond Fire Rescue, are trained and evaluated to a first responder level 3, which is the standard bar for professional firefighters in the province right now. There are some additional protocols that we have endorsements for in Richmond that are very Richmond specific, that we have an agreement with BC Ambulance that we can provide those services for as well.
Thank you.
Councillor Day?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Well, I'm kind of along the same line as Councillor Heed. I was noticing that there were 956 calls in October. 495 of those were medical calls. And then when I look over on page 27, we talk about staff training, fire training, education activities, officer training, frontline leadership. But what I don't see is more medical training. And we did talk about this last time. Where are we at? Because as I recall, we were going to be working to eventually get, I think, the first level of paramedic training for firefighters, eventually.
Through the chair to Councillor Day, yes, the medical first responder training that we provide our staff is based on the regulations that we partner with the Emergency Medical Assistant Licensing Branch, the provincial authority. And so the training is delivered to our staff in certain intervals. And because we do attend regularly to medical events, we don't have to provide training weekly or monthly. Our certification allows us to be reevaluated, retested, and trained on a 2 to 3 year cycle, depending on where the staff are deployed to. As far as where we are with our licensing certification, I will be following up with some more information to council very shortly. There has been some movement from the province with respect to the licensing level and the ability of us to deliver enhanced protocols, but that still is being worked out at the provincial level and hasn't received endorsement at the ministry level yet.
And as we know, the province pulls the strings on this. It's not our decision. Would it be helpful at all if council wrote a letter to the province to ask that they move along, given the incredible medical crises that we have here in the province, to expedite that training? Because I know I've talked to paramedics, and paramedics right out of school are on Hastings Street, whereas before, they'd be in some quiet neighborhood getting a little bit of experience, but the situation is so dire with the paramedic service that they don't have any choice. So right out of school on Hastings Street. So what can we do to expedite just the very bottom level of paramedic training for firefighters so that if needed, they can do more when, especially going to overdose calls and that type of thing?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, there's a number of pieces in that. I serve on a regional committee with fire chiefs and a provincial committee, and we are assigning a number of senior staff to work with the province in order to expedite the delivery of the upgraded training to our staff, especially in the metro region here. And Richmond's going to be one of those first departments to receive that. So as soon as the licensing is established for firefighters, Richmond firefighters will be granted that education and licensed almost immediately. As far as increasing the level of medical training and certification, that's certainly an option, and we could discuss that further at another time. That may result in a different level of service that I would need direction from council to do, should council choose to give me that direction.
Well, I would encourage members of the Safety Committee to consider a motion in that degree to just do what we can to support this movement, because it's coming. And a lot of cities like New York, firefighters are paramedics. So thank you very much I know you're serving on the regional board, you're doing everything you can, but that's what we're here to help with.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Okay, motion.
Maybe see,
Second, contrary, all in favor? Contrary carried. Thank you. And Mr. Wishlove, you got a fire chief briefing for us?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to share two pieces of information with you and your committee. I recall last month we were discussing a little bit about the overdose and poisoning calls. And so I just wanted to share a little bit of background information on that capture of a call type, and to give you some statistics that we've taken out of our data management system since the last time we met. The capture for overdose and poisoning captures more than just simple overdose calls. And those overdose calls may very well involve incidents where our staff are attending illicit drug overdoses, sometimes prescription drug overdoses, sometimes exposures to other types of medications that may not be theirs. It could be accidental. So that term, and when we show that data point in our reporting, it actually encompasses a lot more than simply what we might consider street-level drugs. Also, those events that we respond to where our staff potentially are assessing a patient and may administer naloxone are simply those calls where our staff are doing that. It would not include calls where we arrive simultaneously with BC Ambulance, or in the rare occasion behind BC Ambulance, and they've already administered naloxone. So that data capture would perhaps not give us a full capture of what's happening in the city, although I'm happy to share exactly what our staff are doing. We did pull some data over the last 6 years with respect to the overdose and poisoning calls that we've responded to. And in the last 2 years coming out of the pandemic, there has been an increase in our staff attending overdose and poisoning calls. Again, not all of them have been significantly related to street or illicit type drugs. There have been a lot of reasons that people have been at home, receiving medication, receiving prescription medication, and maybe there's accidental poisonings that have happened. We've responded and managed that. They have not all resulted in a naloxone injection by staff. The other, sorry, if there was questions on that too, I'm happy to answer anything on that.
Not seeing any questions. No, Councillor Heed?
Certainly.
I was not sure whether you'll be able to answer this or the chief would be able to answer this, but the statistic for overdose deaths for October in Richmond proper, do we have that number?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, I don't have that, but I could certainly connect with Vancouver Coastal Health and maybe look for some assistance from the coroner to get that information. It may not necessarily be my information to share publicly.
I'm just seeing the value of this committee having that, the chart on a yearly or, basis, that statistical validity here, because I could see the overdose deaths somehow coming back to us, whether it's through a drug policy or some type of, which would come under us on the community safety policy too. With respect to that, it'd be really nice if we could have that information at our committee meeting.
Through
Mrs. Sham?
the chair, perhaps I could reach out to our medical health officer and, ask to see if there's anything that they could share from the healthcare side of things, because I think both the chief and fire chief has indicated we may not see the whole picture.
Thank you. I think that would be helpful. I think many of us feel very safe here in Richmond, and we are wondering if we're just sitting in our own little echo chamber and feeling safer than perhaps we are, or being insulated from some of the real numbers in Richmond and some of the real needs, and if we need to be doing something a little bit different or looking at different things. Certainly, I think the advocacy work that we're doing with other orders of government makes sense, but having a clear understanding of where we are and what other needs we have, and being able to maybe compare it to what other needs we have within our community within those same realms, so that we're not just maybe overly jumping on something or not. I think that makes a lot of sense. So thank you. If you can find that out for us. Yep.
For a direction or?
No, Mrs. Sham said that she could just get that information for us.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And the only other update I wanted to share was the partnership that Richmond Fire Rescue had with the RCMP recently, the toy drive, and I'm not going to take away any thunder from the police chief, but I'm very proud of that relationship, and we partnered with them during the toy drive at Lansdowne just last month, and we had a number of crews that stopped by and showed the fire truck. We participated in a lot of outreach and had an opportunity to deliver fire preparedness and emergency preparedness information to almost all the people that attended. And it was a really good event for our crews, for our staff, and I believe a great partnership to move forward with in the community. So thank you very much.
CMP monthly activity report. Superintendent Chowan.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. I don't have anything to add to the report, but I'll be happy to take any questions you may have.
Oh, Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thanks very much, to the chair. A great report. Thank you very much. Continue providing this kind of information to us. This may not be you, but I'm going to bring it up here on CS38 in terms of the areas we look at. Road safety unit. We last night we got a letter from the president of Burnett Pack Club, Connie Wang, with regard to between, other council members probably got us in our box, between 8:20 and 8:30 at Burnett School, which is Railway and Burnett. While parents turning left, the flashing light, problems with interaction between cars and passersby and students, et cetera. To me, it probably revolves around a school board problem, but I'm wondering if we can refer it to you, to yourself through traffic safety, but also our own parking, our own traffic safety department here. And the other thing I was going to suggest, whoever's chair of school board liaison,
Yep.
yourself.
Yeah, and Councillor Hobbs and I are on.
Okay, well, I think it needs to be addressed. It's sort of a plea. Please help us. I drive that every morning coming here at 7:45 in the morning, whatever, and I know what it is. And I'm not sure if it's one of enforcement, but I think probably more one of education in what we do. Is the left-hand turn proper, a proper distance, et cetera, enough painted lines? Does the signal work? Should it be a red light instead of a yellow? I don't know, but I would like to refer that to the experts on it and also school board liaison to have a look. She says, I hope the city government can improve the flashing lights on the sidewalk and the double yellow line turning left in the school. I hope the police will intervene and strictly prohibit parents from dropping off their children on the street. I don't know whose jurisdiction it is. Anyhow, make sure you get a copy. And if we could pass that on as part of the minutes. I think when we get those kinds of things, we need to address them. And I would rather us address them. I'm not going to take a shot at the school board, but I think we would address it quicker than they're going to, and before somebody gets hit. And that's it. There is a lineup. There is no question. People line up, and Richmond is notorious for driving kids 60 meters to school and back, and I'll leave that alone. So anyhow, I'll pass that on as one of information. But in terms of the report, thank you very much. Great job. Kudos to everybody and also fire rescue. Everything we've done.
Thank you. And if I may, through the chair to Councillor McNulty, will definitely, take note of that and engage our road safety unit and as well as our volunteer group to make sure there's some sort of messaging or some proactive measures are taking place.
And we have community police officers in there, don't we? I mean, that's another one to refer to. Thank God Vancouver got its census together. Anyhow, yes, and that's Thank you.
Councillor Day?
Thank you very much for the report. I'm always happy to see our low crime rates, as CS42 has got a wonderful graph. That's always good news to hear. Just under that, Blockwatch, the report says that there are 7,044 participants in the Blockwatch program now. How does that compare to pre-pandemic levels?
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Day. Obviously, during the pandemic times, the numbers went down. And even when I took my new position, and that was one of the things that I had discussed with our Blockwatch coordinators to revamp that program. And since then, I have seen a great deal of interest from our community members engaging in the program and coming together in crime prevention initiatives. So I'm starting to see the numbers go up, which is quite refreshing.
Just a follow-up question on that. Do we have a RCMP member who is in charge of the Blockwatch in order to make sure it stays, vibrant, or is it on the side of somebody's desk?
Thank you. Through to the chair, to Councillor Day. The Blockwatch program is primarily run by our municipal staff, but our community engagement team members, they are always engaged with our Blockwatch support staff and playing a key role in advancing the Blockwatch initiative. So there is a police officer component attached to the volunteer components as well.
It's just an observation, but if there's one person who's sort of running with it, it's not being passed from person to person, it always has a better chance of being successful, in my opinion, but you know a lot more about it than I do. There was a story in the Richmond News about an RCMP investigation into a Chinese police station in a residential building. Is there anything that publicly you can expand on? I know the public are asking a lot of questions about it. I realize you can't comment on an investigation, but is there anything that public should know?
Thank you again, through the chair to Councillor Day. There was an investigation conducted by an independent branch of the RCMP, which is the Integrated National Security Enforcement Team, on an alleged so-called police station, Chinese police station in Richmond. Due to the sensitive nature of the investigation and because it is conducted by a different branch, different authority, I am not at a liberty to discuss anything. And that's essentially what I'm able to share at this point.
Can you just say whether or not there's any public safety concerns?
None that through the chair to Councillor Day, if there were any safety concerns that were brought to my attention or were of concern, and we'll certainly would have released a public advisory in regards to that.
Excellent. Thanks for that. That just puts people's mind at rest.
Thank you.
Councillor Heed?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chief, just a couple of questions. With respect to CS 45, the impaired drivings, 52 for October, are they mostly admin impaired or criminal code?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, these are combinations of the IRPs or impaired drivers. And especially now with the holiday season in place, our road safety unit and even our general duty frontline officers, they're actively setting up roadblocks, and obviously that results in both impaired criminal court charges as well as driving prohibitions on the roadside.
Through the chair, are we getting funds from the province with respect to having our holiday season road checks?
To the chair, to Councillor Heed, I am aware that BC HP Highway Patrol, there has been some funds allocated to our road safety units earlier this year. So I'm sure that that mechanism is in place to support us with those operations.
And referring to CS 49 on your stats, in the one that caught my eye was these serious assaults. The increase in 17% there. Is there a specific category of these assaults? Are they domestic? Are they stranger assaults? Or
Thank you for that question through the chair to Councillor Heath. These are a variety of offenses and nothing that is of issue of concern for me. I have reviewed all categories of offenses involving these. There certain are domestic, some are domestic related, some are known to each other, and there's the odd one which is a stranger related. But again, that incident was not a cause of public concern, but this is just an anomaly for this reporting period. It goes up and down, but there's no really specific trends or reason that I can attribute that to.
so we don't have the phenomenon that Vancouver's experienced with stranger assaults?
To the chair, to Councillor Heath, yes, I can confirm that we don't have anything similar to that occurring in Richmond.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you. Councillor Galanders?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I too love to read the statistics of all the crimes that have gone down. There was quite a few that are down from October last year, which is great to see. And some that are up, like the theft or shoplifting. I've just heard that there's been a lot of more grocery store shoplifting and whatnot because people are really struggling with the price of food. So I guess it's not a huge surprise, but I had but it's really great to see how safe we are overall. I had a question about the speed watch letters. Now I can't find it because it's my first time using an iPad for my report. 49, there we go. Thank you. No, that's not it.
CS 44.
I can't see the CS numbers. They're hidden at the bottom. Oh, 44? Sorry. Thank you. The speed watch letters, yeah. So I see that in 2020, we issued like 1,300 of them, and before that, thousands of them, and now it's gone down to low. I thought that was quite an effective thing where if you drive by one of those cameras and you, not that I ever got one or anything, I just, and you get a letter saying that you were speeding, and it's, you know, kind of an incentive to slow down and without getting a ticket. And I'm just wondering, why are we not doing that as much?
Thank you for that question through the chair to Councillor Galanders. Obviously, pandemic had a major impact on that with our volunteer programs or our volunteers to come out and
Right.
help participate in these programs. But again, as I mentioned to Councillor Day earlier, I am seeing an increase similar to Blockwatch. More and more volunteers are coming out, and we are strategically, we have identified areas, intersections, roads, school zones, where we know there's safety hazards, speeding concerns that have been brought to our attentions through different means. So we'll be deploying more volunteers, and then we'll be seeing obviously a rise in those, increase in those letters going out.
That's really great to hear. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm just going to make a comment about the traffic with respect to Burdett. My understanding, if I have this right, and maybe Cecilia can confirm, is the PAC and the principal are supposed to work together from the school, and then they come forward to the traffic advisory committee, and then it comes to Public Works and then RCMP. So typically, we don't start sending RCMP in until the school asks for it, and the principal usually wants to be part of that before RCMP starts suddenly showing up at their door handing out tickets.
You better read the letter that was read to this council.
Okay, but she should, if she's the president of the PAC, she also.
You should know, but
She,
she went beyond that, obviously.
yeah, so maybe we can reach out to her as well and give them some support, or reach out to the principal at least. Thank you. Okay, and move the recommendation?
So moved.
Second, all in favor? Okay, and OIC briefing?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I may add two verbals. First is that our media team, they have put out 2 holiday-related property crime awareness releases on releases which are shared on Twitter. The first one is titled "'Tis the Season for Gatherings and Getaways: Tips to Help Keep Your Home Secure This Holiday Season." And the second one is "Keep Your Gifts Out of Thieves' Hands: Ways to Prevent Being the Victim of Theft from Ardagh." Secondly, as Chief Jim Wishlove alluded to, this year's Richmond RCMP Christmas Toy Drive was a phenomenal success. Thanks to Chief Wishlove and his team for their support, and many others who came out to support this initiative. We beat last year's record of 1.5 tons of toys and $20,000 raised to 1.6 tons of toys and about $26,000 raised. And I got to experience my first dunk tank, and that was a quite pleasant experience, but it was all worth it for the right cause.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Any comments, Councillor Au?
Yes, I just want to ask a different question. We know that the homelessness is becoming a more serious problem in Richmond. So are the police officers being called more frequently right now to deal with situations like that?
Through the chair to Councillor Au, I have not seen a significant increase in the number of calls, but I do know that our community engagement team members from Fox 80, Mental Health, or the Vulnerable Persons Unit, they are engaged and they are proactive in their outreach efforts to check on those locations and on those sites and do what they can in their capacity to help those in need.
Okay, so in terms of numbers of calls, that you did not see an increase?
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Au, I have not seen a significant increase that has caused me any concern.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And managers report, do we have any reports?
Through the chair, just a reminder that snow is coming again, apparently, in about a week's time for some prolonged period. Just a reminder for the public that what we are doing with snow is that we will still deal with it by complaint basis. So the first time we send bylaw officers out, we'll try to reach the folks and give them a pamphlet to say, here's your responsibility, and we'll come back the next day to check. That's the time when we'll give you a ticket. So please shovel the snow.
And speaking of the cold weather, Councillor Galanders has a question about the cold weather and
Thank you. Yes, so the Emergency Warming Center that's going to be opening on the 19th, I was wondering if there was any way we could get it together to try to get it open on the Saturday, the 17th, just because there is an extreme weather warning coming. And I'm seeing some different reports on an independent meteorologist is saying it could go down to -10 on Saturday night. But the Weather Network is saying -3 feels like -9. But it sounds like there's some pretty severe cold weather coming in on Saturday.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Galanders, staff actually work on the whether we get a advance notice. So if we anticipate that it's coming earlier, we'll probably open it earlier. So we are on top of that constantly.
Okay.
So we will check with, we'll have the emergency programs team work with our community social service folks to make sure that we are ready.
Yeah, let them know that it's coming. Thanks.
Trust me, they all have little apps on their phone that we have our own meteorologist.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And Councillor Au?
Yes, talking about the snow removal, what are the fines for violation?
40?
The fines are $40 paid early, and
70.
today we've had about 36 calls for service, in addition to 25 tickets and 3 fines for repeat offenders.
Very good, very good. Now, I understand the approach that, when we are being, we receive the complaint for the first time, we do some educational thing, and then, find them if they do not comply. But, do we have a record of those people who were first being notified, in the beginning? So, last week, they are being notified, right? And then they comply. But if, in this coming week, the same thing happen, do we do the education again, or will it just go into the enforcement?
Through the chair to Councillor Au, corporate communications, along with emergency programs, lets people know about the climate weather and its corporate communications issues for minors. And in addition to that, we track all of the people who receive warning tickets and warning notifications in our Tempest record system. People who are quote-unquote repeat violators will be receiving a fine. That is a multi-year system of tracking.
Okay, that's very good. Yes, good to know. Thank you.
Councillor Day?
Thank you. Snow removal, our favorite subject. Just coming home during the last snowstorm, I had actually to take the bus one day. There were 3 houses on my street that did not shovel, and it was treacherous because the snow had now melted into ice. So I made a note, made a copy of the bylaw that's on the website and attached my card and said, you must shovel your driveway or your sidewalk, it's your responsibility. And if you have any questions, call me, which a couple actually did. What I'm wondering is, should we have a press release or maybe even an ad in the newspaper, because given there's still time to get it in for Thursday, reminding people that if you have neighbors who are not shoveling their sidewalk, give us a hand, let them know, give them this ad and say this is your responsibility if you have a sidewalk in front of your house. Is there any possibility we could do that?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, I know that our communications staff, and we work very closely with them, we tend to use more social media now because it's more, in the moment and you can update it. But I can check with corporate communications to see if we want to put an ad in the paper. A lot of people either don't read the paper or we find it's not very useful in the newspaper as much as social media seems to have a better reach, but there's no harm in doing both if there's time.
Well, quarter-page ads is about $350. I think it's well worth it. If that gets one neighbor to cut it out and go give it to another neighbor, because people are afraid of saying, you've got to shovel it. They want something from the city that says, see? So, thank you.
London Drugs has shovels. Okay. Thank you. Any other managers' reports?
Move adjournment.
We are adjourned.